Hi, Levi.
Hey, Sadek.
Last time we talked with Wes Boss, we talked about components and how components are, you can have components everywhere. For example, we discussed something like components in the app, like React, Vue, Angular, these kind of things. And also that components can happen at the data layer, like with GraphQL queries, you can isolate some data and then you have it in that particular component. And then we talked about the fact that we can go all the way down to style and CSS, and some people don't like that, but you have styled components that can allow you to do that as well. And I was thinking that maybe it's a good idea to have you here to talk about components at the website level. What do you think? Do they make sense?
Yeah, I think they make a lot of sense. When I'm building my sites, I use components, and there are kind of two major use cases that I see when building my sites. It's generally speaking, there are things that are site-wide that can be components like navigation or the footer, for example.
Right.
Something that's on every single page. That's a nice thing to put into a component. And then when I'm building out individual pages, it's nice to have components. Imagine a page where you've got a banner up top. That can be a component, followed by some text, followed by image gallery or something like that. So each different section within a single page can also be built using components.
Right. Now, so if we're talking now about, if we're managing the content in that, and, this is what Prismic does, and that's why we're here, how would you model each of these cases?
Yeah. I model the two cases differently when I'm building sites, especially with Prismic. For the first case that I mentioned, the sort of the navigation of the footer, the site-wide components, what I like to do there is create a custom type specifically for that component, for that section. And then this can be its own document that has all the data it needs. Then the component in the app is able to retrieve that content from Prismic directly, and then build that component for the site.
So an individual document for that navbar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And for the other case?
And for the other case, when I'm doing that for the individual page components, this works really well with Prismic's slices feature, because a content author can add these different sections to their pages to build out their pages and their content. And then this has a one-to-one relation with components that I've built in the app.
Right. So you would, whenever, for instance, a writer will add a section, let's say like the banner into the page, what happens is that the code will match on this, right? And we say, okay, I know that slice and the type of the slice, and I will load that particular component for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but then when you think about it, I find like there's a problem that if you build your website with components, imagine like there is a navbar that is loading, and then there are different parts of the website that are loading, and each is loading its own data. Now imagine you have a bad connection that happens, you're in the train or in the street. And then every component is trying to load its own content. Either it will be very slow, or you will go into having like the thing blinking, right? Because they're individual. Now, of course, you can solve this with loaders, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about suspense, and I will link in the description about hooks and suspense. And suspense, they help in making a loader that knows about the fetching when the fetching is done. And then, it will display or not itself whenever that is done. But any other approaches for handling this kind of the rendering of components for a website?
Sure. Yeah, I know that there are probably a number of solutions out there, but the one that's coming to my mind right now is using a static site generator, something like Gatsby, for example. With Gatsby, you can take advantage of the slice. The component structure with React. It's built on React.
Right.
So you still can use components, but it actually pre-builds the whole site And then when you are requesting a given page, it'll just serve you the HTML and all the resources. Already rendered, already put together. And that way you can avoid the kind of blinking, the different page elements showing up at different times.
But you're still building with components.
Exactly. It's still React. You're still using components, so you can take advantage of both and avoid that scenario.
But I think there are other frameworks also like Next and Next. They kind of do the same thing in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of them have server-side rendering, so again, you can get rid of that. In some cases, you can do that, or take advantage of their static site generation features as well.
That they have as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, then I think we'll link to an example of building a website with slices and components in React in the description. And also I will link to the other video, the components that we talked about. Thank you, Levi.
Yeah, thanks, Sadek.